Hey, everybody. Welcome to Going Deeper with Elisa DiLorenzo. I'm your host, Elisa, and I'm excited today to go deeper into what you can do when you're no longer feeling attracted to your spouse. Today's show is sponsored by Call to Love, Experiencing Your Best Marriage Through the Words of Jesus. This book is changing people's lives as they learn not only how to powerfully pray for their marriages, but also how to view their spouse in the same way that Jesus does. You can check that book out at calltolovebook.com. Now, my guest today, and you are going to love her, she is the incredible Contessa Louise Cooper. She is a sexpert, writer, and founder of the Delicious Life Network, where she shows women how to get exactly what they want in and out of the bedroom. She's a contributor on HuffPost, She Knows, and a best-selling author. Contessa Louise is known for her straight, no-chaser approach to having the sex life you deserve. Welcome, Contessa.
Thank you so much for having me. I am so excited to be here. I'm like shaking. I'm like, yes!
And I have to share with our audience. So Contessa and I were on before we invited you all to join us. And folks, you are in for a treat. Her energy and her passion for just creating breakthrough in this space of, what happens when you're just no longer feeling attracted to your spouse. And, as we're jumping into this, I want you to share, because I've got my kind of suspicions on this, my thoughts on this, but what are some of the reasons that you've found that, we get to this place where we're not feeling so attractive to the one that we're supposed to love?
Well, there's a couple different things that go on. The first thing is you decide that the person that you thought was supposed to make you happy, the one that was supposed to make you whole and complete and be your everything, just doesn't do it anymore.
Oh, yes.
And so when you look at them, you're like, you're not making me happy. You're not entertaining me. You're not doing your job. And that's because that's not their job. It's your job to make you happy, whole, and complete. And so now you feel upset and you're like, I don't even like you anymore. So that's one reason why that happens. Another one is because you guys are bored. Like, you guys have been together for 7, 10, 20 years. You know everything about them. You know that Monday is meatloaf. You know that Friday is pizza. You even know exactly what they're going to do in bed. And so you're just bored. And so that's another reason. And so I have a couple here. And so another one is you found your worth. Like, some of you back in the day got into relationships that maybe you should not have. Maybe you guys were partiers. Maybe you guys are codependent. Maybe they were a narcissist. And these are toxic relationships. And so somehow along the way, you found you. You did the work. You woke up. You got a book. You watched something inspirational. You read your Bible. You are like, wait a minute. I am worth so much more than that. And because of that, you don't want anything to do with your mate. Another one is that you, somewhere along the ways, was hurt. You've experienced some sort of trauma. Maybe they have done something to disappoint you. And you've been harboring that on the inside. You haven't told anyone. It's now festering like a wound. And so every time you look at your mate, you are reminded of what they did or what someone else did. And those are the things that stop you from
Oh, looks like we lost the audio here. Just a second. Let me see. Oh, there we are. Hold on.
Okay, are we back?
I think we're back, folks. Yay! Thank you for staying with us.
No problem.
You were giving us such an incredible list, and thinking through some of those different things. You think about the boredom. I mean, in all honesty, folks, if you don't know, Tony and I have been married for almost 21 years together. Gosh, going on 23 here, beginning of June. And there have definitely been seasons where that boredom factor, where I'm like, oh my gosh, right? I mean, the first 11 years of our marriage, you could have written, the sum total of our sexual variety in like, I don't know, 3 sentences. Right? I mean, that's probably a gross understatement.
But we understand exactly what it is that you mean. You guys had your thing. This is what you did every single time.
And at the beginning, you're like, okay, well, this works, right? So you're like, okay, good, it works. But, you do that for, 7, 8, 10 years, and you're like, well, I know it works, but it doesn't do anything for me.
Exactly.
Right. And then you have those hurts, because I honestly think that anybody that's been in a relationship for more than 24 hours has experienced some kind of hurt.
Exactly.
Some kind of unmet expectation, disappointment.
We do that. People are going to hurt you most of the time unintentionally. It's hurting, and you got to be able to talk about these things and express these things. If not, it's going to cause this horrible wedge in your relationship. And I know that you've dealt with that. Now, I'm not saying personally, but in your line of work.
Oh, and we have dealt with it personally, because there are those times when, I actually shared it with Contessa before we even got on the air that having been married almost 21 years, there have been those times when I've like gotten up in the morning and thought to myself, why was this a good idea? Right? The distance had grown, different things had happened between the two of us. I'm like, what? Like, I'm not feeling the attraction. I'm not feeling the connection. And I'm curious as to what your insights are, because first of all, I have to say, I love knowing that you're a sexpert. I love that title. And I think it really gets to the heart of it. But what is somebody to do when they're not feeling attracted? Because a lot of times, with some of those instances, it's easy to put the blame, right? Like if you've been hurt by your spouse and you're like, well, I'm not feeling attracted, right? Because you did this to me. But what do you do?
There is self-work that needs to be done. And I'm going to tell you this, you're not going to like it. I already know. Your spouse, your mate does not have to change at all. They are allowed to be 100% themselves. You are the person who needs to change. You need to change. Do together and apart. There is something exciting about coming home and telling your spouse about your day. If they already know what you did all day, you have nothing to say. But
that is so true.
You know what? I went and took a painting class today. They're going to be like, you did what? You're going to be like, yes, I learned how to paint. And those small little things is what's going to spark some interest, because now you guys are excited to communicate and talk and to be with one another.
See, I love that, because I think a lot of times there's this myth that we have to spend all our time with our spouse. Like if you love me, you would spend all day with me type of thing. And I love my husband tremendously. But I honestly think if we spent all day together, that it would be so challenging for our relationship. It's like he's a road cyclist. I do not get on a bike with him. Why? Because I listen to him critique everybody as we're riding down the road. And I'm like, 1, I don't need that kind of aggravation in my life. And 2, I don't think that sitting on like a 2-inch saddle, this sounds remotely interesting.
Absolutely not.
When he comes back and tells me about the fact that he almost got hit by somebody, or this amazing morning ride, then I'm like, okay, let's connect. And that's exactly what you're talking about there, is having those interests.
Yes.
To overcome the boredom.
Exactly. And and when you start to do those things, it goes into you not knowing who you are. If you have been raising your children for the past 18 years, if you've been working in your career and everything about you is about serving someone else and giving to someone else, you have forgotten who you are. And so now you don't even know how to be alone and by yourself. And
You
so
are touching on some sticky topics. I love it. Go there. Go there.
And so spending time with you is going to make you a more interesting person to your spouse, because that person you were back in the day when they fell in love with you, that person's coming back now. And they're like, I remember them. I remember them. And then that person that you fell in love with, that person's going to come back too.
Well, and I think that's so important that, we all remember that we fell in love with this person. We were attracted to them. There was all of this, I'm going to use chemistry, butterflies, whatever you want to call it.
Yes.
Whatever you want to call it. At some point in time, it was there.
Yes.
Right? So it's looking at what happened between, like, they're walking on water to, I want nothing to do with you.
Until I want to push you in the water.
Yeah, there you go. We're all talking water. And so it's looking at that and saying, I don't believe anything in a relationship, any disconnect or whatever, is 100% one person or the other. Because it takes two of you to be in a relationship. Right? And I love what you're saying here, though, that it's self-work.
Self-work, yes.
Because I think so often when we're not feeling attracted, we expect our spouses to do the work.
All of the work.
Like, make me love you again. Make me want to be with you.
Exactly. I hear that all the time. What can I do to make my spouse be more attractive? What can I do to make my spouse want to do this and want to do that, to love me more? What can I do to make them? And I'm like, no, honey.
Go there.
You can't make your spouse do anything at all. You can complain and now you're a nag and nobody wants to be around that. But you can change the way you see that situation. You can find the good in your spouse. You can find those little things that make you attractive to your spouse. Because unless you are a completely self-centered person, you didn't fall in love with just their looks.
Yeah.
You fell in love with something in here and something in there. That is the true meaning of intimacy, is looking beyond the outer and going deep within and looking at their spirit and at their soul. And that is still there.
I love that. It. Yes. I love that. I mean, it's that whole play on the word intimacy where it's into me.
Yes.
Right. And so we get into that, and life does throw all kinds of curveballs. I mean, you mentioned, raising the kids and, 18 years you spent focused on your kids, and you're like, oh, who's that stranger that, helped make them all those years ago? But I've never seen you in the last 18 years.
Yeah.
Right. Or, work has been all consuming, and all of a sudden you look up and you're like, oh, wow, I haven't invested anything. I haven't shown up in this relationship. No wonder that person doesn't look attracted. And, when you're looking at this and when you're working with, what action do you take? What's the step? Like, when can you think about doing it on your own? And then when do you maybe need to get outside help?
Well, the first thing is realizing that there's a problem. Again, that's always the first step, is realizing that something isn't quite right. And again, it is quite all right to get help. That's why I'm here. That's why you're there. That's why we have therapists. That's why we have pastors and all these people that are put into our lives to assist us when we don't quite know what's going on. Now, there are some things that you can do on your own. My favorite tools of affirmations. I love affirmations. I love getting the affirmations and the journaling because I'm a writer, so I love to journal, but sometimes you need a little bit more help because you can't do these things on your own. Again, if you are in a toxic relationship, that's a very delicate situation, and you definitely are going to need to get some sort of outside advice. If you have that hurt and that anger that's going on the inside, I would definitely suggest getting some outside help to help you deal with those emotions, because you might not even realize why you're angry and hurt and upset. And you could possibly be blaming your spouse when it has absolutely nothing to do with them and has nothing to do with you. Yeah.
I want to share with everybody watching that, I had a coaching client recently, and they'd been through all kinds of trials in their marriage, and they were coming to coaching because they just couldn't seem to get over this hurdle, right? And, he's telling me, I do a session with him, and he's sharing, Lisa, I bring her hot tea in the morning, and I wake her up to see the sunrise. And I'm thinking,
it's like, oh my gosh, do you have a twin?
I'm like, yeah, you want to move in? And I talked to her, and she's like, he doesn't do anything for me. And it was so interesting because there were still unresolved hurts.
Yes.
And resentment that she had not dealt with. What seemingly, all of us that are on here, I'm like, everybody's like, wait, where is that guy? And what's his phone number?
Exactly.
Right. Who's bringing breakfast in bed? Because I told her, I'm like, I think I've gotten breakfast in bed twice. And both of those times were my kids, right?
You had the runny eggs and the bacon that wasn't cooked all the way.
Whatever. But for her to realize that part of the reason why there was this lack of attraction in the marriage was very much what you're saying here, that there was unresolved issue. There were unresolved issues that she hadn't dealt with. She thought she had. She, like so many of us, had given lip service.
Oh, yes.
Well-intentioned lip service to, I've forgiven you.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
I forget, but and I told him, it's like Pandora's box opening every once in a while. I'm like,
exactly. Like still sitting here just,
yes. I love that image. And so when we have that, it's that struggle.
Yes.
And we have blinders on to see what our spouse is really doing. And that's why I think it's so important what you're sharing, that we have to work on ourselves.
Absolutely.
And using outside sources when we can't do it ourselves.
Yes.
I think is a powerful message.
It is. And I know that in some households, going to therapy is wrong. It's bad. You shouldn't ask for help. You shouldn't let anyone know what kind of problem you have going on the inside of your house. And because of that, you're still hurting. Mm-hmm. And again, hurting people hurt people. And so you're unintentionally every single day hurting the person that you say that you love.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's a societal thing that I think we're dealing with. And, you've done coaching, you shared with me, and I'm reading in your book and whatnot, is that we have to get past this idea that asking for help in our personal relationships is a bad thing.
Yes.
Because if we're not as fit as we want to be, what do? We go to the gym, we hire a trainer, and we have somebody push us and hold us accountable.
Exactly.
If we want to get to the next level in our careers, we go out, we find a coach who's going to push us and hold us accountable. And then there's this thing called our marriage, our relationships, the most intimate relationships that we engage in. And we do this whole roadblock thing where we're like, yeah, I'm not going to let anybody push me or hold me accountable to go into the next level. That's just too personal.
Exactly.
And yet we live in this place of frustration. We live in this place where we get to the point where we're like, I'm not attracted to you, but I'm not going to do what it takes. I know it works for my fitness. I know it works for my career. Why wouldn't it work? It
absolutely will, and it absolutely can. And this is one thing that I want to say. If your spouse, if your partner isn't willing to go, isn't willing to do the work, that's okay too. Yes. You can still go to counseling, still go to therapy, you could still do your part in the relationship and lead by example. There has been amazing, wonderful cases because one partner did what they needed to do. The other one came on board. It doesn't always happen, but it can. And that's okay. Do the work.
And I think what I'm hearing from you, and I've thought it myself, is that, if you're ready and willing, go do it, because you can create a shift in the atmosphere simply by your willingness to go, you know what, I'm going to go, folks. You heard Contessa say this a few times, probably 7, because she really wants you to get it. You have to do the self-work. Right. So if you and I are in this place where we're feeling stuck and we say, you know what, I'm going to go do my self work, and I'm not going to be sitting there going, you know what, Tony, this is about you. Like, you need to go do something, or blaming the kids, or blaming my schedule, or blaming anything else that, let's face it, in today's busy world, we could probably come up with 25 things on any given day that are more responsible for our lives than we are.
Yes, yes.
Right. And they have more. And the truth of the matter is, folks, that at the end of the day, it all stops here.
Right here. Right. Person in the mirror. Yeah. I usually have a mirror close by. Here we go. Right at the person in the mirror. And you know what else I'm not going to do? I'm not going to guilt the other person into going and getting help, because they can show up. They can agree with their mouth to do everything and come back home and not do anything.
Oh, yes. Been there, done that.
Let them be.
Well, and, you know, one of the things that you mentioned a few minutes ago was you get into so often we get into this place where we're nagging.
Yes.
Right. And let me tell you, you may not be feeling attracted to your spouse, but when you start nagging, you are not attractive to them.
At all. They are trying to do everything they can to get away from that noise in their ear, which can look like not coming home.
Right.
And you don't want that at all.
No. And, you know, I love, so just some of the comments that are showing up here in the feed are talking about, you know, no quitting, taking responsibility. You know, if your spouse isn't willing to do the work, it's okay. Leave by example. You know, all of these things that I want to make sure that we're, you know, really focusing on, because, you know, like the title of you all saw in the promotion stuff, when it ain't there no more, doesn't mean that it can't be there again.
Exactly.
We have to look at things in our relationships as seasons, as opposed to like the final chapter. Thank you. Roller coaster, right? Up and down. Because we have it, folks. You know, there are going to be times, if you remember, like when you first met your love and they could do no wrong, right? I mean, it's the whole walk on water. And, you know, like everything they say is funny and everything they do is just loving. And then you realize, like in my case, Tony doesn't always put the seat down in the middle of the night. So there have been instances where I've, you know, fallen in and it's not attractive. It causes me to question, you know. In that space, it's like, wait a minute, where were we 23 years ago?
Exactly. How can we get back to that? And that's where that self-work comes in.
And so what, you know, in the work that you've done with folks, what are some of the, you know, you mentioned affirmations, you mentioned journaling. Would love to, you know, even if there's a success story where, you know, you saw transformation, I would love for the audience just to be able to hear that. Just to kind of even wrap it may not be their story, but to wrap their head around somebody else's story. Because sometimes we're able to go, okay, I see it.
Yeah. So there was a case, it was beautiful, wonderful couple. They had been together for 20 years and they were bored in the bedroom, like completely bored in the bedroom, because they weren't communicating about what each other wanted and needed, because they were raised that you don't have these kinds of conversations. You know, you don't talk about sex and intimacy at all. You know, and so I had to walk through, number one, to being comfortable enough to even talking about it to me.
Wow, yes.
Talking about it to their spouse and saying, you know what, I know you've been doing this for the past 10 years, but I don't even like that. I would really like for you to try this or that. And for the spouse to actually sit down and listen without being offended. They weren't saying that you're not good and you're not talented. Right. They're saying, let's try something different.
Well, and I love that point, because there was a comment that says, perhaps it's not about getting back, but creating something new where you are now. Yeah. And that's exactly that comment and what you just shared tie in together, because it's true. We do grow and change. I mean, they've been together. That couple had been together for 20 years. What worked, you know, in 1997, what's 20 years ago? What worked in 1997 is gonna look. Our bodies are different. What we like is different. And I love that you're empowering the couples that you work with to develop that language around their sexuality, because I think I completely agree with you. There's so many couples that were taught, we don't talk about sex, we just have sex.
We just have it. However way you give it to me, that's the way that we have it.
Right. And so we don't talk about it, and there isn't a language around it. And, that willingness to hear what our partners are saying about what's working and what's not working. Because at the end of the day, it's like I tell my couples, you might have gotten sex ed when you were in high school or junior high or whenever they did it. Okay.
The worst.
The worst. But let's talk about where we are now. You've been married for however long. You actually have a live person. Like, let's experiment. Have some fun. Figure out what works.
Have somebody you can play with. Go do that.
We're not talking textbooks anymore. We're talking, and in that playful, in that fun, in that let's put some words around this. All of a sudden, your marriage looks different because you're breaking through the routine. You're breaking through, you're going through healing, like you said, through the affirmations and the journaling and the self-work to go, what's changed in me? And what do I need to do? Because at one point in time, this person was amazing.
Yes. They were your everything. Like they were the air that you breathe.
So true. And I think it's so important, as we're wrapping this up, that, each one of you watching today just takes away the idea that, where you've been, it doesn't have to dictate where you're going in your relationship. Just because you've been in a rut, just because you're like, you know what, why was this a good idea? I tell people all the time on the show that where Tony and I are now, 21 years in, we're at the best we've ever been. But there was a good long time, like the first 11, where we're kind of like, what are we doing? And we, at that point in time, didn't have the courage to go get help. It wasn't until about like 11, 12 where we started to get help. And I wish we had done it so much sooner. That's why I'm so appreciative of what you do.
Thank you.
I'm so appreciative of the time that you've spent with us, because it's important for people to know that there are so many different resources out there. There are so many different ways of looking at this thing called marriage. There are so many different ways to take what Contessa has said and go, okay, you know what does that look like? How do I bring those affirmations? Can I ask you, is there like one or two affirmations that you might be able to share with the audience?
There is. And one of the things that I say is that I attract love.
Ooh.
And just saying that every single day, you start believing that you yourself can attract love, and then you start seeing love in every single thing that you do.
Okay, folks, that was worth the 30 minutes. Like, if you got nothing else, because I hope that you all can see watching this just what Contessa's personality is like, and you know that she is saying this out loud. You know that she is believing in this every single day, that she attracts love. It's the energy that you bring. And it's what you've given each and every one of us on the show today, of just saying, you know what, if I attract love and I'm going to find it, how am I going to show up?
Yes.
Right? How does that impact? If I attract love, then I've got to be someone who's lovable.
Exactly. And a lot of times that is the first step, is knowing that you deserve love. You deserve respect. You deserve to be heard. And a lot of times you are raised not to believe those things because of past hurts and because of past relationships and toxic relationships and all of that. You have forgotten who you are. And so those affirmations help you to remember that. It was actually this week, I just developed my empowerment cards. They're called Body Love. And they are to help women love their bodies exactly the way that it is. You don't have to go and have cosmetic surgery. You don't have to have a bikini body, because all you have to do is put on a bikini, you have one. You don't have to have sex with the lights off. You can love yourself just like you are.
Okay, so I want you to share, just in the couple minutes we have left, can you, besides where they can get these cards, but where does the audience find you?
So I am on every single social media channel available at Contessa Louise. And I tell them, all you got to do is remember my name, Contessa Louise, and you can find to you. I also have a Facebook group that you are more than welcome to be a part of. Women only. Sorry, guys. I love you. But women need a safe space to talk about sex. And it's called the Delicious Life Network. You can find it on Facebook. You can also go to bit.ly/Delicious Life Group to find us.
Awesome. Well, Contessa Louise, thank you so much for your time. Each and every one of you, I want you to take away from this that, there is always hope, right? There is always hope, and there's always something that you can do. As we go deeper in each area of our relationships, there is always something. Like, don't ever get to the point where you're just like, there's nothing I can do. Take this idea of affirmations, take the idea of journaling, take the I attract love and own it, right? Check out everything that Contessa Louise has. Look at those cards. Make sure, if you're women only, check out, her groups and whatnot. Guys, don't worry. We're going to be bringing on men to speak to you as well. Equal opportunity here at One Extraordinary Marriage, but take action in your relationships. Don't let it just be, well, this is too hard and I'm not going to do it. Make sure wherever you're at that you choose to go deeper. And we'll see you guys on next week's show.